Hey, hello, everybody. This is Kevin Addix with the Maryland Wineries Association. Welcome to Wine Wednesday. We got another great guest on today to talk about local wine, Maryland wine, local wine scene from a national perspective. I'd like to bring up onto the screen our special guest, Michael Kaiser from WineAmerica. Michael, how are you?
Hey, Kevin. Good. Thanks for having me. You caught me on a good day.
I caught you on a good day. Well, it's spring break for you, right?
Yeah, my kids are on spring break. They're not here right now, thankfully, actually, because we're still doing virtual school here. Yep. But it's kind of a light Zoom / Microsoft Teams / conference call day for me. So
good. Well, I hope that means you'll have a sample of wine with me at some point.
I do. I have. I opened a couple Maryland wines, actually, to a white and a red from two of my favorite Maryland wineries, and there's a story behind each one why they're my favorite, and I think they represent different eras and of the state, but of the wine scene in your state, but they're both probably in the top. Obviously I can't play favorites, but they're definitely in the top, some of the top producers in Maryland and on the East Coast, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to say we got a few of those, which is great. I've got a few here that we'll dive into as well, but let's chat first. So you're with WineAmerica. I'm very familiar with WineAmerica. A lot of our wineries are familiar with WineAmerica, but maybe not our viewers. What is WineAmerica?
Okay, well, yeah, you're right. It'll be 15 years, believe it or not, in July that I started at WineAmerica. And, we're the eyes and ears for the wine industry in DC, basically, from the national standpoint. So, we represent wineries from all across the country here in DC as your lobbyists, along with doing interface with things like the TTB and the FDA as needed, and now SBA in the era of COVID. And, basically, if you're a small winery in Maryland or Pennsylvania or New Jersey or, Idaho or a place like that, you can't afford to have a lobbyist in DC. Your state can't afford to have it. And your state association, much like your association, you do most of your work in Annapolis. Right. You need someone here in DC. And that we fill that void. And, it's interesting from our organization, is we represent the entire country, whereas our friends who work for the Wine Institute, they represent California only. And obviously the wine industry, and we'll talk more about this throughout the hour, it's the elephant in the room is that there's a state that makes 85% of the wine. Right. And, of the 10,000 wineries has half the wineries in the state. So, and that's kind of an uphill battle when you're talking about the industry, because everybody associates the industry with one state. And you don't see that in maybe to a lesser extent with bourbon, there's Kentucky and beer, maybe you look at Colorado as a state like that. But I mean, there's no one state in the other commodities where it's really dominant like California is with the wine industry.
Well, and that's just because of how the industry evolved, and huge credit to California for getting that far so fast and to continuing to be the leader when they've got 49 other states nipping at their heels.
Well, and if not for prohibition, I mean, things would look very different. I mean, Missouri might be considered the home of the wine industry. Ohio, one thing that in these 15 years that I've really loved is that I've been able to witness the rest of the country really establish itself and establish, states like Texas and Virginia really coming along, and New York as well. And obviously Maryland too. It's just been fun to watch, particularly in the last 10 years, how the quality has improved, but also the innovation that a lot of these the other states are really doing, that you're not just getting, I think there's the perception, of the U.S. it's Chardonnay, it's Cabernet Sauvignon, that's kind of it. But there's so much different stuff being done, from whether it's hybrid grapes or just, vinifera grapes that have found a home on the East Coast. Like one of the wines I opened has half Gruner Veltliner. I mean, that's an Austrian grape you get, and it's now being grown on the East Coast. It's just, amazing to me to see that, or how Albarino's kind of caught on in on the Eastern Shore in Maryland, and how it's doing so well over there with like Port of Leonardtown, doing such a great job with that grape.
So in addition to trying a lot of wines, you get to talk to other associations. Ours, we're in contact near constantly, but you're talking to others. You've got a board of directors, you've got a state association council. What are if you could say the top issues, if you could name them, what are the top issues that the industry at large is facing?
Well, I mean, they've changed drastically just in the last 6 months. So, if you go back to the before COVID, we had this one large bill, and nobody knows about it better than you do. Working in a state that has all these craft producers was the Craft Beverage Modernization and Tax Reform Act. And what that bill did was it lowered federal excise taxes. So for the viewers who may not know, every alcohol producer in the United States has to pay federal taxes for the privilege of making that product, basically. And we worked on a bill with our friends in the beer and spirits industries, and cider and mead too, to get those taxes lowered for all producers. It was the previous system, only the smallest of the small had a tax credit, and we've expanded that. So if you look at like more mid-sized producers are getting more of a benefit, so they can reinvest back in the community, reinvest in their businesses. So that was pre-COVID, and then COVID hit, and we had to switch to kind of all working on PPP funds and SBA issues, and trying to get emergency stuff, emergency funding for the industry as everybody had to shut down. Although a lot of that was done at the state level too, like in Maryland, allowing home delivery for alcohol and things like that. But and then at the end of last year, we were able to get that craft beverage bill made permanent. So now all the tax credits are permanent, which was huge. Yeah, huge. And then so looking at this year, it's shifted a little bit. I mean, we're still looking at COVID relief as a big issue for us and the industry. But there's other things happening. I think one of the things that we're watching is what's going to happen if there's legalized cannabis at the federal level, and how that impacts the alcohol industry. The big thing we're working on right now, though, is another bill. The bill that just passed in Congress, the American Rescue Plan, includes a restaurant stabilization fund. And what they did is it was $28 billion that funded this program that allows restaurants, breweries, tasting rooms to all apply for a federal grant based on losses in previous years. So you're able to, apply for a grant that you don't have to pay back, and that is just about to start to be the program's about to be put in place, and we're going to try to get more money for that. But I mean, really, right now we're looking at, again, COVID-related issues, trying to get some more help for the industry, and we're expecting a big tourism boom this summer for wineries, because people want to get out again. People getting vaccinated, they'll get out again. And always we're watching regulatory issues to see what the TTB, and for those who don't know, the TTB is the federal regulatory agency, part of the Department of Treasury, that regulates the alcohol industry. So, we watch any new regulations. One of the things we're always concerned about is, whether or not, I talked about lowering taxes. There's always a chance that alcohol taxes get raised to pay for something else. And then another thing that I've been working on that does actually impact the entire industry is the tariffs that have been put on EU wines here in the U.S. And the way, people ask me, well, how does that impact the industry? How does it, if you're a winery in Maryland or Virginia or Pennsylvania and you're not exporting, how does that, you're not an importer, how does that impact you? Well, say you're a Italian bistro in Annapolis or Baltimore or Washington, D.C., and you specialize in small production Italian wines to go with your food. You're not all of a sudden going to switch, as great as it is, to Maryland Barbera to go with your stuff, Right. But also, that's a misconception that you can just replace one wine with the other. When I hear why America wineries should be for lowering the tariffs, they say, well, this will just help our industry. And that's a misconception. And third, say if you're a Maryland winery who are in a few retail shops, and those same retail shops bring in, similar sized producers from Europe, from say Spain or France, if that business is hurting, that's it has to shut down because of these tariffs. You're going to that's one less avenue for the winery to get their product to market. And and also there's the impact on restaurants. Like I said before, restaurants are really hurting right now, and to have to pay more for some of the products that they need impacts everybody. And so there's a ripple effect that goes along with these tariffs. But I was happy to say, Kevin, last year was a good year for us to be able to kind of clear the decks with the craft beverage bill getting finalized, and that took up the majority of my time going back to June 2015, as you well know. So, and we couldn't have done that without our winery members helping us, and also association leaders like yourself reaching out to the members at the state level. I mean, it took a long time, but we were able to get your senators finally on the bill in 2020. And, it was just stuff like that. You can't overstate how important the grassroots aspect of things is that we do. And we had 75% of the House sponsoring this bill, and 60, I think it was 77 senators. I mean, it was one of the great things, particularly these days, is that alcohol and wine is kind of nonpartisan.
Well, totally. And look, I think, we talk about California being the big kahuna in terms of policy about wine, and certainly the number of wineries and the recognition. But in terms of getting votes, it really does take Nebraska and Alaska and, North Carolina and Maine to get on here and get their senators and congressmen and women signed up. So, I mean, that was a true testament. You and Tara and Jim and the whole crew did an amazing job getting that done. I did want to ask if you could pour a wine, because I'm going to do that as well.
I actually have a couple poured already.
Oh, pre-pours.
Pre-pour, tasting pours. If you want, I can show you what I have open.
Yeah, show me the way.
So first, this is the 2019 VGV from Black Ankle Vineyards in Frederick County. And the VGV stands for Viognier Gruner Veltliner. Yep. And it's 50% blend of both. It's a small production, 147 cases, like a lot of Black Ankle wines. And I just thought this was a good example of an innovative white blend that you don't see too often. That and it has some grapes that you don't see too often, but have really been really successful for the Mid-Atlantic region. And then the red I have today is the 2016 Lost Order number 191 from Bordy Vineyards. And this is also a blend. It's got Petit Verdot, Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, and Cabernet Franc. And this is an example of a winery that has a storied history that has really changed and made themselves to be a really premium producer in the state. And, these two wineries, full disclosure, I'm very close with the owners of each. I know them both very well through my work at WineAmerica. And, they're really some of the best people out there. And the wines are two of my favorites. And also, full disclosure, I belong to both of their wine clubs.
Oh, well, I mean, this is great. Thanks for supporting the industry.
And so, I mean, it's just, talking about the Gruner Veltliner and Viognier. I mean, obviously the viewers who are familiar with Black Ankle, with Maryland wine know Black Ankle. And, it's just, first of all, who has heard of Gruner Veltliner as a wine consumer? Not unless you're really into kind of this, nerdy esoteric wines, you don't really know that. And Viognier, Virginia's done really well for themselves with Viognier. And, I think if you look at, and I think I was talking to viewers by now, Joe Fiola, who works for University of Maryland, who helps you guys out a lot. So about that, it's basically the same. Frederick, Maryland, and Loudoun County, Virginia are basically the same. There's West Virginia there too, and it's the ground is the same, the soil is the same, and that's why and both of these all the grapes for these wines were grown in the Frederick area. So there's a reason for that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen the news, but we just announced our winner of the Comptroller's Cup, which is our second competition of the year, and it was Big Cork Vineyards Viognier.
Okay.
Which was the first time a Viogniers won. And I mean, just a beautiful wine. Every wine in that final round was great. And that one just sang.
Yeah. And, these are both of these Bordy and Black Ankle also have Viognier. It's, obviously one of these wines says have Viognier, and Bordy really makes I think they make a small varietal Viognier every once in a while. And so, I mean, it's just, some history with these wineries and me personally is that I remember, 2008 Black Ankle opened, I believe.
Yep.
And I, when I was first brought on at WineAmerica, the thing that I did was help wineries get their labels approved through the federal government, which back then it was done on paper rather than online. And, wineries would send in the physical copies of the labels to me, and I'd walk them into the office and submit them. And we had a devil of a time getting the Black Ankle labels done because they were listing, if you look at the back there, they list a whole bunch of, different things on the label. And, they were new to the industry. And, I helped them get those because I think they only had red wine back then. And I helped them get these labels approved, and that just led to this long relationship. And they've worked with us at the board level for a while, and Ed was on the WineAmerica board for a while. And so, it's just one of the great things, and I know you can say the same thing about working for this industry, is the people that you get to meet.
Oh yeah,
and and I've been lucky enough in my job to meet people from all over the country, just like Ed and Sarah at Black Ankle and the DeFord family at Bordy. Just wonderful people that love what they do and are really making great things, for us to enjoy.
It's the wine, but it's really the people. But it's the wine too. And I got a show and tell one that I've got here. So this is Port of Leonardtown Sauvignon Blanc, and let me shine that up there. So this has done very well in our last two competitions, and it is a gorgeous wine. So this is a 2020, so it's fresh. And just if you can get your hands on a bottle of it, it's well worth it. But beautiful. Lauren and the whole crew at Port of Leonardtown has been just amazing.
Yeah, that's a neat business model they have there with the co-op of growers.
It is, yeah. I think it comes with challenges because you've got a lot of growers and a lot of different grape varieties and a lot of different grape varieties. And so as a winemaker and someone who's building something that you have to sell, and you may not have enough to make a strict 100% varietal of anything, you've got to be creative about all these very cool, interesting, unique varieties. And she's done it, and Pat Isles before her have done just an incredible job. I've named whoever the winemaker is there the Wizard of Grape, because they're able to figure out how to make a reserve. Do you remember that reserve Chamberson that we had at the Drink Local Wine at one? Which we should talk about because we
8 years ago this week. Yes,
8 years ago this week we hosted the last. Was it the last?
The last one. Yes, you guys broke it.
Let's say it's the most recent Drink Local Wine Conference, which was all about trying to get wine media, bloggers, other people to just pay attention to local wine. And we had a heck of a trip, a wonderful visit, some great wineries. I remember, ambushing Sugarloaf Mountain Vineyard and it was so great.
Mm-hmm. And, having lunch at Black Ankle and then doing a tasting at Bordy with Mike Fiore, and then Cygnus, which is no more, unfortunately, Ray Brassfield. So, that was a fun afternoon and day. And then, we all joke about people that went about how much lamb we ate that day, but it was really, I think mission accomplished with getting people to pay attention to local wine. I would argue, it's been, you get people writing about wine from all, like Vermont wine now, and it's just Minnesota wine. Yeah.
The point is just to look around where you are, before you grab that bottle of whatever you're going to grab. Look and see what is there locally and give it a try. And I will tell you that I am utterly shocked and surprised by the fact that Maryland lamb has not taken off after that, where we had 2 courses of lamb in one day, which is such an odd obscurity, but it happened.
Well, I will say that it was a good thing. There was at least that 45-minute bus ride from Black Ankle to Bordy for everybody to kind of take a little power nap after that lunch.
Right, detox from the meat and the grilled oysters, as I recall.
But since then though, it's just been really amazing to see, the way things people have, like consumers, not only consumers but also people in the know, in wine writing and I don't know if wine blogging is still a thing, but it's people are accepting of that, and I think that for one of the things that always bothered me is you go to like a farm to table restaurant, and it doesn't there's just there was no local wine on the list. And whether, even if you go up to, the Finger Lakes in New York, way back when, you would see that. And now that is like the premier established wine region here on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And, so it's happening all over. And I think you look at like a restaurant, speaking of, again, Drink Local Wine Conference catered by Woodbury Kitchen. I mean, that's a restaurant that really helped put Mid-Atlantic wine on restaurant lists. And he was not just doing Maryland, but he had Virginia on there too. So, and I have talked about this at length about how kind of from North Carolina up through Pennsylvania is almost one big wine region. And I think you see that in the fact that a lot of the same grapes are being done. Seeing stuff like Cabernet Franc really just become ubiquitous with the Eastern wine industry. And I remember my first experience with a local wine, a local winery, so to speak, was I went to Barbersville in Virginia. And that's what opened my eyes up to, a lot of these European varieties. And then I went to the Mount Vernon Wine Festival, which was all Virginia wine. And then that's kind of what got me into, through what I do at my day job. I was lucky enough to, be able to go around the country and visit a lot of wineries. And that led to the day, I'm one of the lucky people where the day job bleeded into, one of my hobbies, and not many people can say that. So
were you into wine before WineAmerica, or did WineAmerica kick it off?
I was not at all. So when I was in college, I was like so many 21-year-olds. I drank, not so great beer, occasionally would do a shot of something. And I went to, when I was a senior in college, I did a kind of a bus tour of Spain, France. We started in Barcelona and we did the south of France and went to northern Italy on a bus. It was about 3 weeks. And that was when I learned about, wine culture for the first time, if you will, and how, especially in that part of Europe, having wine at lunch is ubiquitous. But it didn't, it was always in the back of my head. I didn't really, I was still, I was like most young people, men in their 20s, not really a wine person or a wine connoisseur, and drinking stuff like Yellowtail and just horrible stuff I wouldn't drink now, but nothing wrong with it at the time. And then I met my wife, and she's from Sonoma County in California. And the first time I went back for the big family Christmas with her family, that brother-in-law at the time was a club member at Cake Bread Cellars in Napa, and also a club member at Domaine Chandon, the sparkling wine house in Napa. And he picked us up from the Sacramento airport, and he took us wine tasting because he needed to stock up for Christmas, pick up some club wines. But that was my first time like really wine tasting. And that is kind of what I, again, didn't really, I took notice of what, wine tasting was, and started to appreciate it a little bit more. And then I was kind of in between jobs. I was working for a summer as a tour guide here in DC. And I had like a nonprofit kind of search agency looking for jobs for me. And they said, do you want to do this thing with this wine trade association? I was like, well, I really don't know too much about wine. They said, well, you don't need to know about wine. You need to know how the government works. And I was like, well, that I do know. And that's kind of, that was July of 2006. And that just kind of exposed me to that. And that from there is where it really started. And, my first office, the space that I had also was the space where we had all of the stored wine from events.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if you ever were that office.
I do. I remember the walls of wine.
Yeah. So back then there's only 3 of us on staff now. There was 5 of us then. And obviously we don't really go to the office anymore, but on Fridays, we would open one of those wines. And that, I remember starting, like the first time I tried a Norton from Missouri or the first time I tried, name another hybrid from another state, that I would never have tried before. So that, that exposure, and then our big congressional tasting.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
Yes. Is, where we get wine from like 20 something states. So, that's how I was exposed to this world. And from there, I became more passionate about, the local, if you will. So wherever I go, try the wine. So that's, That's it. It was so. I probably, if I didn't work at Wine America, I would probably enjoy wine, but I certainly don't think I would be into it at this level, obviously.
Yeah,
And
you wouldn't be tasting, Michigan that or Idaho or
right.
Nebraska that. The Taste of Wines of America that you put on, that Wine America puts on, I have learned so much, and I like to think of myself as someone who's adventuresome and likes to explore. But and it reminds me that you can't do that from here. Like, you have to get out and you have to be traveling to these places when you're on a business trip or you're visiting family. Look around and see what's there. But you bring it all into Congress for a night, and it's a draw to get Congress folks and their staff to come to the event. But oh my gosh, it is the highlight of my year to walk around and do that.
We've been since 2019, so we obviously miss it. But just to give the people who are watching an idea of what it is every year we do kind of a board meeting, and then bring in our some members, whether it's someone like Kevin, who's an association exec, or if it's a winery owner, or whoever is the representative with our organization. They'll come here to DC, and they'll work as a representative of the national industry as well as a representative of their state industry. So we'll do a bunch of meetings together with members of Congress and Senate, and then we'll send everybody off on their own to do that. And then that culminates in this reception. It's a lot of planning and a lot of work on my part and my colleague Tara to get it done. And what we do is we get wine from about 25 states. And depending on the size of the state, if it's a state like Maryland, we'll probably have 2 wineries who are our members represented. But if it's like California or Washington, we might have 4. And we get a couple wines from each winery. And the idea is that you get congressional staff and members of Congress and Senate and other VIPs to come in, and they can sample wine from their country or from their district and from their state, and learn and meet the people that are making it, and learn about the challenges they face, or like if fires hit your vineyard the year before, or if there was a flood or a late frost.
You get to tell the story and try the wine that's associated with that, and
often that works better in a lot of ways than if you just go into their office for a meeting.
Totally, yeah. If you can ambush them over a glass of wine, right? Tell me about the red wine you have.
Okay, so that's
the Bordy.
The Bordy. It's probably, I opened it about 3 hours ago, and it's these Bordy reds need a lot of time to kind of mellow them out. I have another bottle of this, which is why I opened this one. And I'm going to store the other one for a few years. But
so Michael, hold that thought. So our wine ambassador, Maryland wine ambassador Claude Mackey, in response to me saying it's my favorite night of the year, it's his too.
Yeah, Claude's helped us out a lot. Hi, Claude.
Claude hoofs boxes and pours wine, and I'm sure he's got some favorites from other states too.
I had because just you guys our organization is split into regions, and you guys are in the Northeast region, so you share a table with Pennsylvania, New Jersey, a bunch of other states. So both you and Claude have done me the favor of pouring other states' wines too. So and trying them. So this is a Petit Verdot, Merlot, Cabernet, Sauvignon primarily. There's 4% Syrah, which is unique. You don't get much Syrah blended into these Bordeaux blends. And Cabernet Franc 1%. And this is not to be confused with the Landmark Reserve, which is the one that just won the Governor's Cup. This is their other big red blend. This is, it's got the classic Mid-Atlantic red wine, nose on it. There's only 1% Cabernet Franc, but I can definitely pick up that it's in there. Obviously, Petit Verdot is something that's kind of become an East Coast thing too. But this is just one of those classic red wines from the East Coast, 13.5 alcohol by volume, so not very high. It's got pretty tight tannins though, so it does need to sit for a while. But what I love about Bordy is the risks that they took with their business when they wanted to, I think, they get pushed by a producer like Black Ankle, if you will, to kind of up their game, which I think you could say did for the entire state when they opened. And the owners at Bordy, they took a risk, and they replanted virtually all their vineyards. And they've reaped the whirlwinds immediately by this. Every single one of their wines is just like a knockout, in my opinion. Now,
Yeah, I love the Lost Order. It's one of my favorite 40 reds. I got one that I just opened as well. So this one is Crow Vineyards Malbec.
Oh wow!
So it is. Well, let me just say it's amazing. 14% alcohol, red cherries, mulberries. I mean, it's gorgeous. I mean, really nice color, and I'm thrilled for. Yeah.
They're been another. They're known for I guess Barbera more than it's kind of become their signature. But it's been great to see. I just across the board, not just in your state, all the states, just so many great quality producers, so many great people. And I sound like a broken record here, but there's a lot of, like, whether it's Bordy and Black Ankle doing kind of these, normal wine, I guess, so to speak, and then you get people like Old Westminster who are experimenting and doing things that are kind of, they make great wines like these too, but they're doing things like canning wines, making Pet Nat, Piquette, which all of a sudden is a thing all over the place now. And it's just been neat to see just the old school, if you will, and then the new school, and everybody representing the state in such a great way. And but I think I've seen that up and down the East Coast, I think, too.
So you provided a perfect segue to my last wine of the day, because I've got a meeting at 4. So, just doing some sampling here.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can see it, but this is an experiment. This is the first time we've seen a winery in Maryland do this, and it's the Wine Collective in Baltimore. They have made a vermouth.
Oh wow! Okay.
And so let me put that up there. It is stunning, and of course, vermouth is fortified, and so this is. So the base is a 2019 rosé, and then it's 16.5% alcohol. So it's got a little bit of oomph to it, obviously. But what this wine has done is it's shown me just I knew nothing about vermouth. Mm-hmm. And so it's walking through it with them, how they've made it, how they've produced it. Took the rosé, distilled a little bit of it, adding the flavorings, everything else. It's really incredible. And you've got the folks you mentioned at Old Westminster who are doing very cool things, and the Piquette and their orange wine, and they're, aged in all manner of different materialed vats and bins, and that type of experimentation is really cool. And I think it brings a new audience into the industry as well, which is great.
And they also, just to use Old Westminster as an example, is they do all the experimental stuff, but they also do a lot of these traditional things really well too. And that I think you got to have both if you're going to have that business model for sure. And they've been successful by doing that, I think.
Michael, let me ask you, so you survey a lot of the regions, you taste a lot of the wines. Is there a grape variety that was kind of new to you that surprised you?
Actually, it would probably be Gruner Veltliner. Actually, now that I think about it, as something that really, I thought I knew a lot about wine, but I didn't know what it was. And I think there's the first one I think I had was probably, like a lot of people maybe who know East Coast wine, was Constantin Frank from the Finger Lakes. Mm-hmm. And I had that one, and then I heard and then Blanc Ankle came out with theirs. And then I believe I think Old Westminster did a Pet Nat at one point with it, and then there's a winery in Pennsylvania you're probably familiar with called Gale and Glen.
Yeah,
and they make what I consider
the champion.
It's like $17, and it's this amazing, like one of the best white wines I've had, and it's like a benchmark East Coast wine, if not a benchmark American wine, in my opinion. So that was one that really kind of opened up, that I didn't really know much about, that I've started to seek out some Gruner Veltliner from Austria now. And that was that kind of opened my mind up to what it could do. But, going back even further, when I first started doing local wine tasting, it was in Virginia. And it was Viognier and Cabernet Franc that really kind of, when I was at Barboursville that first time that I referenced earlier, those were the ones that stood out to me. And then, a place like Horton Vineyards does so, and for that, those were kind of the two, because like so many people, I just do like Chardonnay and Cabernet Sauvignon, maybe Merlot, Sauvignon Blanc, and as a casual wine drinker, and these it's just the tip of the iceberg. And then other wines that are recently I've started to delve into a little bit is these cold climate hybrid grapes that they grow up in Minnesota and Vermont, like Marquette and Frontenac, and some of the stuff they're doing with those, are pretty neat. It's pretty neat to see. Marquette is kind of a little bit like Pinot Noir, in my opinion, in terms of the kind of wine you can get. And but some of those cold climate white grapes are, there's so much acid in those that I think that it's hard to get the consumer who's not really into acidic stuff like that to open their mind up to trying these things. But
they're great for sparkling.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Oh yeah.
And there's one thing I would also just say is that going back to mission accomplished, if you will, on local wine, there's now states that were considered to be regional that I think are national wine regions now. And I think the two that I'm really talking about are Texas and Virginia have really come into their own in the last 10 years. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the support, in Virginia's case, the support they got from their state government has been huge. And I think that now you're going to see the others, the kind of the smaller second tier states, like just second tier in size. I don't mean in quality or anything like that, but Maryland and New Jersey are two states that I'm excited to see where the industry goes in the next 5 years.
So I had a conversation with some Arizona winemakers, and they sent some wines. They are phenomenal. And it's just, it's a reminder that wherever you are, once the wineries figure out how to grow the grapes and which grapes to grow, they can grow phenomenal wine. And, that is the challenge of every region that I've witnessed. California was in and planted a lot and figured it out. I mean, that's what they did in Bordeaux, Burgundy, Alsace, et cetera, over hundreds of years. But just seeing how these industries can move so much faster because the technology, the know-how, all that's there. Once you figure out what you can grow and how you grow it, the wines are amazing. We got some hot climate grapes in Arizona, and my gosh, some amazing Mourvedre and Graciano and things that you don't see a lot of. They're incredible.
And I think that it's hard to keep up with. I think it's easier to actually keep up with wine trends than it is with like beer trends. Just maybe because I'm plugged into the industry more. But you could become so overwhelmed, and I think people get overwhelmed from the wine industry and wine. And just the best way to not feel overwhelmed is to go out and try your local wine, I think.
Yeah.
And if you've never experienced, if you live in Baltimore, you never experienced local wine, shame on you. But first of all, but second of all, just go out there and try it. The worst thing that'll happen is that you don't like it.
Can I ask you an odd question? Not odd, but maybe odd for the context of our discussion. When you were abroad and when I travel abroad, it's kind of understood that the wine pairs with the local cuisine, and that the local cuisine has helped to shape that. Do you see that as much in the New World? I mean, can you point to? I mean, there are wines here that I think pair very well with crabs, for example.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it happened intentionally. Do you see that in the New World?
I don't think it's done in the same way. No, it's just not. I think, when I think of, use crabs as an example, I think of Maryland Albarino. Just,
right.
Maybe another, Sauvignon Blanc on Long Island and oysters could possibly be something like that. But, because, and what's interesting is you go to the Finger Lakes in New York, and they're known for Riesling. There's no food in the Finger Lakes that revolves, that is really something like that goes hands in hand with Riesling. I mean, when I think Riesling, I think of, seafood, obviously, but that's inland. So, I mean, it's just, So no, it's a very different idea of what wine represents in this country,
Yeah.
and I think that comes back to the point we made earlier about one state just completely dominating production. That the cuisine and the wine culture didn't go hand in hand like they have in Europe. I don't think I think you're starting to see that a little bit more, but it's not the way it is in Europe. And also, a different phenomenon that we have here with our industry is that we're so focused on grape
Right.
names, it's this
grapes and a variety of grapes.
Yeah, right. So if this was made in Bordeaux, if you will, they probably wouldn't list.
Right, wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't happen because they wouldn't put the Syrah. That would have been horrible for them to do that. But we're so focused on the grapes in this country, which is interesting to me.
So kind of a final closing question: Where do you think the industry is headed? And your answer can be policy, it can be grapes, it can be vineyards.
So I think that you're going to start to see more cross-pollination with commodities and products. I think you're going to start to see like wine cider hybrids more often. You're going to start to see, more canned, and when I say cross-pollination, it's not just the products, but marketing of things. Low alcohol is all the rage now. And, this piquette phenomenon, which for people who don't know is basically watered down wine that's turned into sparkling wine and could be, it's a great summertime beverage if you don't want to have a 13% alcohol by volume glass of wine at lunch or something like that on the weekend. So, and then, I think that the wine industry really needs to think about its future in the sense of, there's not as much cohesion nationally with the wine industry as there is with other industries, that with this distilled spirits and with beer. And I think that's why we're kind of caught flat-footed when it comes to marketing our products sometimes. And so, I think that there's, we need to think about what we're going to do as an industry collectively going forward. And I think, from a policy standpoint, we should be concerned about what cannabis could do to our industry in terms of eating into our consumer base. I think that's a generational thing, but I think there's a lot of questions about where do we go from here as an industry. But market it from like a product trend, I think you're going to see more of that cross-pollination, if you will.
Mickey Parrish, who's been a judge in some of our competitions, says also East Coast cheese culture can impact wine decisions. I know certainly now that I'm really excited about local cheese, that makes a big impact on what wine I'm having, what cheese I can find, and then I'll change that. But that's interesting. What pairs with the cheese? I guess it has to do with whatever the predominant local product might be, and then you begin to see it. I texted you the other night when I had a soft shell crab and paired Albarino with it, and it was the perfect pairing ever. The perfect pairing ever. And I wouldn't have thought of it, but that bottle was staring at me, and that crab was looking at me, and I figured, let's try it.
Yeah, so, the one thing I would just say is people need to just try things. That's I'm not one for wine pairings. I kind of do fall into the more traditional sense of what I drink with what I eat, that like red wine with meat and white wine with fish, etc. But if you like a Chardonnay with a steak, do it. If you and when in doubt, always have sparkling is a good rule of thumb. Like for actually, and you'll appreciate this in terms of new products and new things. I actually just bought some Big Cork wine this morning. I wanted to try their new sparkling and the Chenin Blanc Viognier blend that they just put out. So I'm excited to get those wines. And a lot of times, if I know the producer, I'll just go in blind and try a lot of their new products, because unfortunately you can't. I haven't been out to a winery since December of 2019, which is kind of killing me a little bit, but that's going to change soon. I actually just booked a reservation to go to Old Westminster for lunch next month. Excellent. Got to try their pizza. Yeah, if you need someone to meet you there, I'd love to have some pizza and wine. Well, it's my birthday, and I promised my wife Liz that we would go together.
Great.
So no,
Well,
hope you don't take offense to that.
I won't. No, if I'm at the table next to you, just ignore me, okay? And Cheryl posted a great question. Have we done a segment on local cheeses? And no, we have not. So Cheryl, we're going to put that at the top of our list.
You get the cheese lobbyist on to do that.
I'm going to get the cheese lobby on. So Michael, thanks for joining us. Any final closing thoughts?
No, just like I said, just try your local wine. Try wine from Arizona. If you're here on the East Coast, just try any and all wines. Try American. Plug for the industry I work for. But I joke about that. Try whatever wine you want. But I just I guess the thing that I would say to people who are intimidated by wine, just try it. It's really not that big of a deal. You don't have to drink high-end Napa or Bordeaux or Burgundy or Champagne. Try something new.
Yeah, we joke that you don't need to spend $75 on a great California cab. You can do that here.
Yes, you can, and you really can now. There's a lot of wineries that are selling them and selling out of those wines at that price. So good for them.
Well, Michael, thank you for joining us. We've got your colleague Tara joining us next week for a conversation, and she's got a whole different perspective, and I'm looking forward to talking with her about it.
Sure, she will talk about music at wineries.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about music licensing for sure, and what that means, and why it's a pain in every winery's rear end. So, Michael, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, my friend.
All right, talk soon.
Okay.
So another great chat with another great person. I do want to point out, and I'll do my little scroll at the bottom. So our next Wine Explorer release has actually been announced. And so you can go to marylandwine.com/explorer to check out the incredible wines that we have set aside. I will say that every wine in this pack earned a double gold in our most recent competition. So there were enough wines at that achievement level that we've brought them in. They're best in class. They're double gold. So please take a look at this. You can order a red pack, a white pack, both packs. We've also got a sweet pack, which has some really interesting, innovative wines. Again, all double gold medal winning. And if you subscribe, so if you agree to just automatically get this club shipment, there is an extra wine in there that you have access to that nobody else has access to. So I'll leave it to you to go figure that out if you are so inclined. So with that, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody who tuned in, and cheers.